Welcome in. We are getting our ducks in a row. Maybe not. Maybe not. Why is this not working? I did this. Trying to get all of our platforms connected. Welcome in. We're going to start right away. And I'm just going to see if we can also whoa. Lots of static there. Don't do that again. Okay. We're going to start in just a second. This is Give Voice to Your Vision with our special guest. And the Instagram is not working, so we're going to skip that for today, and we'll put some fun clips up there later. Welcome in. Our official beginning. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on LinkedIn, let us know that you're here live. We're going to check in with you in the comments. This is Give Voice to Your Vision, and I'm very excited to have a special guest today to share with you on storytelling. So welcome in. I'll turn our music down and want to introduce you to first of all, welcome to this episode of Give Voice to Your Vision, and to introduce you to a friend, a client, a colleague, a masterful businesswoman and book publisher. I'll introduce you officially in a moment, Barbara. We are here to talk about hidden stories in your life and how to tell them and why it matters. So let me introduce you to Barbara Dee. Welcome, Barbara. I'm so glad you're here. Barbara is the owner and senior book editor for Suncoast Digital Press book publishers. For 15 years, she's helped aspiring authors develop and write their book, not just a book, but a great book that people actually want to read. And her expertise is in nonfiction, including brand building books and memoirs. And for the past 2 years, Barbara has done a deep dive into storytelling, which is what I'm so excited for us to talk about today, not only for authors and speakers, for anyone, for humans, right? She teaches and mentors you to craft everyday experiences into stories that make a difference while making you and your message unforgettable. And that's what we're going to dive in together today. So welcome, Barbara. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Michelle. Wonderful to be here and with your wonderful audience.
Awesome. So you've helped people write and publish nonfiction books for years. What have you discovered really separates a book or any piece of writing from just something people read to something they remember?
Well, for example, brand building books, which are maybe half of the clients that I've worked with, are coaches, speakers, business owners, and they know that to boost their brand, give them instant credibility, be selected for keynote speaking, they need a book. And they may say, well, I like to speak on or teach or focus on leadership. Well, that's great. You know, if that's your passion, that's great. And then sometimes they'll ask me, but there's already hundreds of books on leadership out there. And I'll say, yeah, that's the good news. That means that it's a popular topic. It means that people who want more depth and study and self-learning on the topic of leadership are buying books to help them. And if they say that they just got promoted and they're like, wow, I don't know if I'm ready for this leadership role, are they going to buy one book on leadership? No, they're going to buy several books on leadership. So it's fine that the topic is not so unique, because what is going to make your book unique is that it's your perspective, your stories, your life experiences. And while maybe initially they might say, oh, yeah, I know I need to use some stories. I'm going to use that story about Lee Iacocca. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like in all these other books. What's in no other book is your story about the time when your three managers didn't show up and this was happening and that was happening and then so it's a personal story that is unique, makes your point, illustrates the distinction perfectly, and it's not found anywhere else.
I love that so much. And so I know that a lot of people really feel like either they have a million stories, so how do they decide which one to pick from? But many people feel like they don't really have stories, or they're not sure what their stories would be. So speak to that a little bit. What if I feel like, you know, an example, I was talking with somebody who's like become a master student. I have studio and student in my brain, in my mouth. Um, a PhD and certifications, and like we're researchers or we're studiers, or we love the practices for the healers who have the modalities and the practices. So it feels like it's other people's stuff, right? That what they do or what their wisdom and their expertise is like other people's stuff. So
Mm.
you know what I mean? So how do what do you say to people who are like, well, I don't really have any stories?
Well, you
Well,
do.
you do.
And
How do
that's
you
one of
know?
the things I do with people is I call it mining for the gold.
Hmm.
And so you are living life every day, and there are stories, and what is the prerequisite for finding great stories is not to be a better storyteller or a better writer, is to be a better noticer. So it's actually a practice and a habit to notice different things that might otherwise just pass you by. And that's that's the identity that I coach people and that I've been practicing for 2 years, is to live like a storyteller, so that I'm noticing moments during the day, not dramatic things, not weighty, amazing things necessarily, but little moments of connection or surprise or an aha or realization or something my 3-year-old grandson said,
Nice.
something amazing, right? So the the thing is, if you notice these, it may or may not be the perfect thing to develop into a story later, but if you jot it down, if you start making a note, at least at the end of every day, of something that caught your attention, that you found that stopped you in your tracks or made you notice, then at a later, when you do want to develop a story, you have that seed of an idea,
Mhm.
and those ideas are there all day. You just haven't been looking for them.
I love that. That's kind of how, songwriting happened for me long ago. I was walking to work across New York City to my day job, and I had this lyric. Like I was walking, viscerally remembered becoming so present to my life at that point for other reasons that we won't go into here. But everything felt kind of alive in the air, and I was paying attention, so I heard that first lyric and I heard that thought. And this morning, when I was out for my walk, as you're saying, those capturing those moments, practice of noticing, right? So I was a yogi for years, so I've done a lot of noticing and thinking about how that is the foundation for the identity of a storyteller is fascinating. I love that. That's one of my takeaways from our call already, to our conversation today. And so I'm walking. I would love to like have an idea of how any small moment could become a story. So this morning I'm walking and it's a little bit warmer than usual here. It's the end of August. And so summer has got about a month left. And as I was walking, we live in Portland, Oregon. It's very beautiful and lush, right? But as I was walking down this quiet street on an early morning of the only person around, one brown leaf fell, right? And I have been noticing already this change of seasons and the evolution of, for me, fall is always a very exciting time. The end of the year, I come alive after the summer. So I noticed that one leaf falling, that one brown leaf falling. So how could I turn that into a story, or what would you say about taking a moment like that? Or could you give me an example of how
Sure.
that could become a story?
Well, what what's the one thing that you need to remember before you start to tell a joke?
I don't know.
The punchline.
Mhm. Right, the destination where you're going, yeah.
So and I want you to write that down in your story bank, so you're developing a list of potential stories. And because that moment meant something, you're not sure what yet, but it meant something, it stopped you in your tracks and you noticed, you would write that down.
Mhm.
And so, what I mean by, well, what's the punchline is, let's say that you're writing, because I know that you write articles, you
Mhm.
write a newsletter, you write for LinkedIn. I mean, most of us need to develop content, and whether or not we're writing a book or not, we need
Yeah,
content. And so in your speaking or writing, you know that you need stories here and there, right? To keep your to keep your audience engaged, to
yeah.
make that connection and be engaging. So you might say, I really want to illustrate a point about, what is it that you want to illustrate a point
Yeah,
about?
what came up for me, and we won't go too far into this because I know there's another, we're going to work on this together next week. But what came up for me in that moment of noticing is this idea of momentum and how fall is, the seasonal change begins like a month before we actually kind of notice it or feel it. Like everything's still very green, but that one crisp leaf was like a little, fall is coming. What's next? The transition, noticing is part of even what I would write about, is like noticing that, and what comes up for me and how I would apply that to my business or to my clients, etc. So I loved that I had that very specific noticing, and we've
Yeah,
talked already today about.
and and the person walking next to you that also noticed the leaf is going to have a completely different story about what that means to them.
Right. Hmm.
To them, it might mean school is starting, or it might mean, oh, I have to leave Portland and go somewhere, because the summer's over. I mean, it means something different. So it's not the thing itself, it's what you want to give it meaning to illustrate your message.
Nice, nice, and that's where the craft comes in, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, what makes a personal experience a story rather than just like I noticed this leaf on my walk today?
That's a good question. There's a lot of things that people use the word story to mean. When I was little, it meant a lie. Oh, are you telling a story? So, or
Or the stories we tell ourselves, which is sometimes denial and
yeah,
limiting beliefs. Yeah.
yeah. And then anecdotes are often called stories. Oh, I have a story. I went to the doctor's office and you wouldn't believe. And so that's what happened. But a story, in my definition, and a useful one for our purposes in storytelling, for connection, trust, all the things that you get when you craft a great story, is that you want to think about the theme, like the punchline. You want to think about the point, And then you want to ask yourself, what are the stakes? So, what are the stakes involved? And when you're able to identify the stakes in your story, like this happened and it was such a breakdown because I was on my way to a job interview and I had to, it was like something so important. It wasn't just that you got stuck in traffic, it was that there was something so important at stake, right? And that makes your listener care. Otherwise, we don't care. Okay, so you get stuck in traffic.
And so when we're right. And so when we're writing for brand building books, since that's most of whom I'm talking to are people called to share a message, right? We're called to share. There's something on our heart. We've lived it. We've had a transformation. We want to leave a legacy. We want to uplift others. Something is inside of us that has to be expressed to press it out into the world. And a story becomes then a vehicle for not just telling them what happened, to recap what we've covered, what you're sharing with us today, not just telling them what happened, but letting them have a stake in it too, right? So, like, why does it matter to them? And when it matters to you and they can relate, then that story is not only building trust and trust, and you said something connection, but credibility and authority uh, uh, I don't know if there's anything better, more effective, because that story creates those emotions, some kind of an emotional connection. And there's lots of research that shows us that memories are mostly felt. We remember things because of how they make us feel. Like Maya Angelou's great quote of, like, people remember how you make them feel. Maybe it was
Right.
Wayne Dyer has one too, right? So when we put it in that, we identify the stakes, we're talking about the emotional, and we're also, I think you're saying, our perspective is unique, right? So we're putting our meaning into it. We're invoking meaning. Is that right?
Yes, you touched on emotion, and that is important. That's very important. And it might be that you give them, when you're laying out the stakes, it shows you as a vulnerable person. And then that draws in the listener because they resonate with that and they want you to get through this crisis, right?
They want to find
And
what
they
happens too.
relate to it. They relate to feeling stuck. They relate to feeling stuck and how are you going to get out of it? So it's a little bit of an unfolding, like anticipation, which is also a very important story element versus just telling you what happened to me today. It's like building suspense and building some anticipation. That really is an important element when you're crafting the story.
Nice. So why talk to me a little bit about why storytelling is so important for people who do want to have an impact in the world, leave a legacy, have more influence, even if you want to have more influence with your grandchildren or more influence with your teams or your company or your family, like, why storytelling? Why is that a skill that's important for us to have?
It's funny, I just posted an article on my website um, yesterday in the articles blog section, and I won't go through the whole story, but it points to someone that lived almost 2,000 years ago, and he was a philosopher. He used to be a slave, then he was a philosopher, and he told stories, and one of his students transcribed them, and so we still actually have some written accounts of these stories. And the way I relate to that is the last time I went to a conference, it's probably been a year, but the last time I went to a conference, do I remember all the speakers? Well, I remember a couple of them. And then I think, okay, what did she say? I don't remember anything she said except for her story.
Right.
I do remember her story. And I don't remember the other speakers. I don't remember all her points, but I remember that story. It was amazing. It was a very heartfelt story of survival. So that's one thing that is unique. But to answer what you're saying about today, in today's world, what is going on? AI is like, oh, I can write your content, I can write your stories, I can write your blogs, I can write your whole book. And it can do certain things, but it can't live your life, and it cannot generate authentic stories. That's uniquely human, and it has been since the beginning of time for humanity. It's uniquely human to be able to tell stories. And so it really is the skill that differentiates us today from anything AI.
Yeah, you're touching on something so important. AI is a fantastic tool. We both use it in our businesses every day, and it can do a lot of other things for us to streamline and behind the scenes. But when it comes to our message and our content, we can see it when we scroll for 5 seconds online. We can see the formulaic content and the how everything's starting to feel and sound the same. And I've been saying this for years in terms of expression and voice and presence. We do our visibility power up 5-day experience once or twice a year. And we really are coming into like your own voice. And that is, as you're saying, that no one has read the same books, had the same experiences, thought the same thoughts in the same order. That's your perspective, which you're talking about. And then there's the meaning that you add to it, right? So your perspective. AI can sound real, right? It can be very convincing. Some people have AI, like as their best friends and their confidants, right? So when we rise up through that with humanity, our perspective, the meaning that we add to it, how it impacts us, the choice to develop the skill of telling that story. How do we talk about? I mean, I spend, my days helping people talk about who they are and what they do in a way that people will resonate and engage. And that storytelling is the vehicle that no one else can replicate. Right. I even have clients who we've been doing very similar work for the same amount of like 30 years. And yet we have a different approach, a perspective, a different thing, energetic presence and voice that we bring to it. Right. So story becomes the vehicle for that unique to you perspective. You're talking about, becoming unforgettable and memorable. And I think that the combination of learning how to unfold was your word, unfold a great story that has your perspective, your experience, your voice, and the meaning that you make of it uh, is the key differentiator, right? And it's critical, right? It's essential right now. AI even needs us to do that, right? AI is trying to make us look good. So, but it needs our voice and perspective. So, can you tell me a little bit about um, uh, the skills that we need to have in order to tell a good story?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot. It starts with noticing, because that is a skill, as it turns out. It's something to
100%.
practice, just like if you were trying to build a skill of playing a piano. I mean, you really
Yeah.
have to practice it. For most of us, it's not already an ingrained habit.
Mhm.
It's much more common to be distracted,
To not notice.
and to not notice,
We
and to
sedate
actually
ourselves. Mhm.
train ourselves to not notice.
Yes.
Right. And so that's number one. And I do teach skills. I have a workshop next week that's
Yes, we're gonna share information to join you. We'll talk
okay.
about that in a
That'd
sec.
be
Mhm.
great, because
Yeah.
I get people started on the basics and the story bank and what you need in order to have a foundation and a framework for building stories that you can use over and over and over with different stories, different points that you want to make, different meanings. And I would say that what's important to know is that it is a skill. So I am not, quote, a natural storyteller. I didn't grow up with anyone in my family telling stories, and I just wasn't exposed to any great storytellers, nor did I think about storytelling. So for me, it was just something that other people were good at. And I was, very entertained when you happen to be in a room with a great storyteller, right? And you're entertained or you're engaged, it's wonderful. But that's them, right? That's them. That's their thing. And so, what I want everyone to know is that there's a set of skills and you can learn it and practice it. And maybe you don't want to be on stage telling stories, or maybe you do, but it's fine just to build those skills and use them in your everyday conversations and everything that you write and everything that you're speaking.
Yeah, I think there's a hidden layer of confidence and owning who you are and how, showing up in the world a little bit differently with a little bit more of your own voice and sparkle in everything when you have some skills. I mean, people think that I'm just always great at being visible, but it's actually very much the opposite, right? I completely shut down my voice for almost a decade. So much fear and uncertainty and self consciousness and second guessing around being visible or doing live streams. All of those things were huge breakthroughs for me. And so having some simple skills for how we approach that and a way to do that is very powerful. So you're going to do this workshop. I'm going to tell us a little bit about this. I'm going to show people the alchemy of story workshop is coming up. Let me figure out how to work the buttons. Here we go. Barbara's workshop. Tell us when it is and a little bit about what we're going to do there. And I'm also going to grab a link for people if they do want to register and join us. We'll both be there.
That'd be great. I'd love that. I'm calling it a workshop because it is a workshop. It's not a webinar. It's not a lecture. It's not a sales pitch. Okay. It is a workshop where we will look at storytelling, how you might, well, why would you want to become a good storyteller? Why do you even want to have these skills? All the different ways that it will serve you. And then we will look at, all the ways that it would serve you, what would be the most useful to you right now. And as you said, it might be within your own family and within your own communication, or it might be because you're developing your next keynote speech, or you're writing a book. Whatever it is, we're going to look at which kind of story you should start with. And there's many. You could think, okay, there's a origin story, there's a client case study kind of a story. There's all these different stories that could be developed. So I'll help you think about that and identify those. I call it the alchemy of story workshop because it is about mining for the gold in your life and turning that gold into powerful stories for trust, connection, be memorable, and be engaging. So that's the main thing that we will accomplish, as well as starting with the framework so that you know, you can buy into my challenge of changing your identity into someone who notices everyday things in life that could be stories.
I love it. I love it. And I can't wait to join you on that workshop.
Okay.
One thing we haven't covered yet before we wrap up, I'm also feeling, I know that I've been creating content for about 12 years online, and I have many decades of teaching before that where I was teaching and creating workshops and things. And so for me, there's a bajillion stories, and I've been practicing noticing since 1992. Like, I developed that practice, and so touch a little bit on how to, uh, how to make a choice, right? How do you choose which story to bring forward, and I can easily feel like I could do this or that. I could talk about a million different things. Do you have any insights or processes for how you would help people to choose?
I do, but the premise is a little off because while we think that we have to like match this story and this meaning and so well, and it's actually not true. It's actually I teach the skill of writing what I call connectors so that you can connect pretty much any story with pretty much any message.
I totally get that. I find it very overwhelming personally because I can take a brown leaf and turn it to like what I'm focusing on, but there's like so many stories when it comes to like writing another keynote or like writing the book, like choosing the like pivotal stories or the little moments. I could write a book full of little moments, right? So is there a
Well,
next step maybe
I
after the workshop?
evaluate I evaluate a story one way is ups and downs. Does it have a lot of ups and downs? Because
Okay.
that makes a
Mhm.
story engaging.
Great.
So
Mhm.
you could actually look at the outline of a story, which I teach,
Mhm.
and then you can say, well, where are the ups and downs? And if there's a lot
Nice.
of ups and downs, that's probably a winner.
That's a great takeaway. So just that, even that alone is, I know we're touching the tip of the iceberg for what you could be recommending here, and I appreciate you keeping it focused. But that alone is a way to discern and decide, and to one of the things that I see in content creation for sure, but even in every business decision that we make is, what am I going to give my time, energy, and attention to, and making a decision and sticking with it and letting it be done and moving to the next thing and implementing is so powerful. So one of the reasons, why it can take a long time to create content, or it can take a long time, is, first of all, there's some skill that you're going to be walking us through in this workshop a little bit. I don't know how much we're going to get, but I know the foundations of these connectors, and having those kinds of skills and those ideas, looking for the ups and downs. Those are things that most of us aren't being taught in terms of content creation either. Storytelling is very different from content creation, and AI can like churn out splatters of video, crazy, wild, produced, slick content that is just more noise in the field, right? And so, uh, having a way to make decisions and just write it, right? Like instead of writing the book, write the next book, right? Write the first book, and then I think, having a guide, a mentor. I know you're a developmental book editor, and you walk people through really pulling their stories and their books out of them and helping them do that from beginning to end in your higher level container. And so I think I'm very excited about the workshop. Thank you for being here, and to learn and to hone and shape specifically in our AI world. There are content constructs that work, right? But it is the meaning and the voice and the ups and downs and the connectors, to use Barbara's words, that help the stories ring through, resonate, captivate, and create influence that's actually authentic and meaningful because it is you, right?
Yeah.
Because it is you.
Yes.
So the Alchemy of Story workshop, it's next Thursday, right?
Yes.
On the calendar. Turn your life experiences into gold. If you're here watching on YouTube and you have a story to tell, maybe you've already written books, maybe you're writing articles, maybe you're on Substack, maybe you're building a YouTube channel, if you're on LinkedIn and you're writing newsletters and you're doing posts, you're doing content, you're creating webinars, you're doing live events where you're on stage. I remember one of the first live events I went to, It was the second or third because I was in this guy's mastermind and I was riding in the elevator with him and he's like asking his team, which story should we use? What are you feeling? I've got this story and that story. Which story are you feeling right now in this next section of the event? And it just kind of struck me in that moment, but I hadn't remembered that until this conversation here, right? Where that is becomes this like tool, spontaneous that you can use in the moment, right? When you're in a by the water cooler or when you're at the boss's house for dinner, because then you get the raise, then you get the promotion because you've captured
Mm.
that attention. And the same thing applies to our content online and the stories that we're writing or telling on Substack and in newsletters, building that connection and rapport. So if you had a room full of people who were dying to write their next book or write their next keynote, what would you want them to know about storytelling and what's possible for them with that skill?
Start with a story, a personal, first person, true story, not a wonderful fairy tale, parable, narrative. I see some people think, oh, I just need to write a good parable. Okay, it has its place, but your life, your life has the goal. You just have to mind for it and start with a story, whether it's a chapter, an article, a speech, a way to connect with your teenage nephew that you can't think of how to connect with. Start with a story.
I love it. I love it. And we're all going to do that with you next week. Thank you
Yes.
so much for being here. I think there's still a
Thank
few
you,
spots
Michelle.
open for others to join. I did put the link in our comments, which I'll make sure that that has populated if you're watching on YouTube. I know people are going to come back and watch on YouTube. If you're watching on LinkedIn, let us know you're here in the comments.
And
And
my website is barbara-d.com.
I have it on screen. Yeah.
And it has right on the front top, there's a banner for the workshop too.
Both the links are in the comments for
Thank
that,
you,
and
Michelle.
barbard.com is on screen. So yeah, thank you for being here. It's such a
Thank
privilege
you.
to
It's always great to
um,
be with your energy.
work with you and support you. Yes, and the Alchemy of Story workshop, you guys, you're welcome to join us. We'll both be there with bells on
Yes.
a week from yesterday,
Yes.
next week. So join us for that and share your takeaways below the comments. What did you learn from this? If you have other people in your life who want to really stand out in the noise and find their voice in their content in a really personal and unforgettable way, share this live stream with them. And we will see you on the next episode of Give Voice to Your Vision. Thanks again for
Excellent.
being here, Barbara.
Thank you so much.